What's up YouTube, Dale here from Zephyr, and today I am bringing you the profile that a lot of you have been requesting, and that is an update to Fire King Tri-Brigade, or what I like to call it as the Fire Brigade, but then technically Rescue Ace stole that title in a sense. Anyway, so this is an update to the Fire King Tri-Brigade profile that I brought you way ago. I've updated it for the new ban list now that we no longer have Appaloosa accessible for technically both sides of the element. And the idea behind this is you can go a little bit more aggressive, but there's also the route that you go into a Shurag and then you link the Shurag off into a Zelantis, which will then give you access to Ponyx. So there's loads of ways of how one engine, so the Fire King, gets you into Tri-Brigade by popping the Ferrigite in the deck with your Grunix, and there's ways how you can get through the Tri-Brigade route to get you into a Ponyx should you need it. So with all of that out of the way, please smash that like button, hit that notification bell, and subscribe so you won't miss out on any more upcoming content. Diving head first into the Fire King cards, we are going with triple Fire King Ponyx, followed up by triple High Avatar Kirin. We then pair that with two Fire King Garunix, and I personally like to play two Avatar just for the pure fact that previously this deck had the ability to get into Appaloosa a little bit earlier on, but now it doesn't really have that option to it. So being able to protect your Tri-Brigade plays and everything else, one of your best ways of doing that is through an Avatar. Now you can very easily cut this down to one if you want to, but I do not mind this actually being my normal summon, and you'll see that when we get to the Tri-Brigade element that utilising Karaz a little bit more is something that you're going to want to focus on just to kind of keep all of the engines ticking along. We've then got the one Barong just for those grind game stances. You can make this deck a very more aggressive go second option as well, because the Tri-Brigade give you that ability to flood the board with stronger monsters as well, or just give you a way to add monsters to the board and then cheese out stronger link monsters in the form of stuff like Shurag, which gives you a nice little non-target banish, which can be very important. Then for the rest of the Fire King cards, we are still playing 3 Sanctuary and 2 Island. Now the reason I've gone with a 3 and 2 is for the pure fact that you still want to be able to utilise these cards. Like you still want to be able to get Sanctuary, which gets you into Island, which is going to give you a little bit more board presence, and you still want to be focusing on the Fire King themselves. Now you can very easily cut Sanctuary down to 2 and Fire King Island down to 1. I did do that in the past, but what I kind of found was in the grind game, I really did miss the second Fire King Island, which is why I'm still sticking with 2 and a 3. But again, it comes down to personal preference, and you can make this smaller, depending if you want to lean into the Tri-Brigade side a little bit more, or you want to stick with the Fire Kings. The last Fire King card we play is the one Fire King Skyburn. Just a nice little ability for going second, or technically setting it when you go first as well, to kind of help you balance out the board state, and just a bit more back row destruction in general, being able to kind of get rid of your opponent's cards and trigger your Fire King cards. Moving on to the Tri-Brigades, of course, we do play triple Tri-Brigade Fractal, followed up by triple Kit. Now, Kit is the one that I might consider cutting down to 2. And if you really wanted to put the Tri-Brigade engine down to the bare bones because you wanted to play the least kind of Tri-Brigade influence build, then you'd still go 3 Fractal, 2 Kit, and then you'd probably play 1 Nerval and 1 Karaz. But again, in my experience, just in the grind game, you really do want those additional copies of those particular monsters, because then you get to resolve the Kit loop twice, and then that's just going to give you enough kind of Tri-types in the graveyard to help you get into your link plays and everything else in between. So as I'm playing a much more dense or a bigger version of the Tri-Brigades, I am also playing 2 Nerval and 2 Karaz. Like, hard opening up Karaz is not the end of the world. It's actually pretty decent as long as you've got the right discard in order to get to it, or to get it onto the board. And it just gives you that ability to not rely so heavily on your normal summon. It also gives you that ability to hold this card back, so that if they do Nibiru you, you can still go, okay, cool, Karaz, discard, summon, and then continue to make your plays. So it's one of the ones that you can hold back in reserve, or you can go all-out aggression, depending on if you're fearful of Nibiru or not. And then just to get additional copies of pretty much all of these monsters, we are playing triple Tenki. Now this is back to 3. I think it's been back to 3 for like 2 lists now. But this just gives you technically multiple copies, so like 6 copies of Fractal, 6 of Kit. You've just got more access to get you the discard fodder you need for everything else in between, and it is still really useful. And the last Tri-Brigade card, of course, is Revolt, because this card's absolutely nuts. And then for the hand traps, it really is up to you on this one. I go with triple Ash, triple Nib, and triple Imperm, but you can adapt this however you see fit for your environment that you're taking the deck to. I just feel that these are pretty much the baseline generic hand traps. Nibiru is probably like one of the ones for the format, and what I mean by this is if you're taking it to an environment where a lot of people play rogue decks or underdog decks that don't naturally have a way to either play around Nibiru or protect from Nibiru or anything else in between, it can be very damaging. Now, I've done a couple of locals since the new ban list, and I am seeing that Nibiru is being mained more times than not with most, and if anything else, it is definitely being sided. So it's definitely a card you need to be wary of, and it's definitely a card that you need to either be able to play around, or you need to be able to kind of have it in your own locker that if you do go second, you have that ability to threaten your opponent by dropping a nib on them, and you're not auto losing to decks that just go off. There are a lot of decks out there, like Heroes, like Infernoids, and just other decks in general that can just go absolutely ham, even Ritual Beasts. And if you don't have a Nibiru, if they go off unanswered, it's pretty much near impossible to actually break their board and defeat them. But if they do get hit with a Nibiru, but they can't protect from Nibiru, and if they get hit with Nibiru, you can pretty much push them and you win the game. You swing the pendulum back to your zone, so to speak. Moving on to the extra deck, so for the Tri-Brigade cards, we are playing 2 Shirag, 1 of the Rugal, followed up by the 1 Ferrijit, and then the other kind of like Tri-Brigade target you can play is the 1 Ancient Warriors. I am playing the 1 Salamangreat Almiraj. You can cut this if you want to, and if you were to cut this, you can also go for the Scareclaw Link 1, but the idea behind this was there were a couple of times when you might open up a Nerval and you're like, damn, I need to turn a Nerval into an Almiraj. It gives you that fire monster. It then triggers off the Nerval and you go pretty much near full combo. So there are times where playing the Almiraj can be very, very effective for you, which is why I've opted to keep it rather than getting rid of it. And then for the link cards that kind of give you more towards the Fire King side, we've got the 1 Anima for going second. Like I said, you want to be a little bit more aggressive. I then play the 1 Moon of the Closed Heavens with, of course, Closed Worlds, because it gives you a very nice just go second option. A lot of people, again, like I've said in many of my profiles, see the Moon of the Closed Heavens, go, right, okay, cool, here comes Requiem. That when you go, okay, cool, effect, target, and then link with another one of their monsters that maybe is like a mini towers or something, they're like, oh, damn, didn't see that coming. So this can definitely be a game winner to keep it on a budget. If you don't want to play this, you take both of these out, you've got access to SP Little Knight and everything else. It just depends on what you have access to. Nightmare Phoenix, followed up by Hita the Fire Charmer, and of course the Promethean Princess. So the reason we play Princess is, again, it's just a very nice and easy route in order to go into something like your Amber Whale, which can then go into a Zelantis, which helps you build into an OTK, while also leaving a fire monster on the board. Your Princess can obviously float back. And then the only XYZ we play is the 1 Garunix Eternity, just as that generic rank 8 board wipe that's going to get you more benefits in the Fire King version than anything else. And I do feel that that's where Sanctuary can really, really cause your opponent a lot of issues, because people forget that this is actually a card, because most times than not, when you're seeing Fire Kings being played, it is with Snake Eyes, which is understandably so. But when you're able to go, whoa, hold on a minute, I'm playing with Tri-Brigade and I still have access to this, it really can catch your opponent off guard, and it really can give you either a nice boss monster on the board or just that nice ability to board wipe, which is something that some decks will struggle against and they don't really expect. So that is it for the entire profile. Like I said, I tried to keep budget in mind on this one. I didn't want to go anything too wild or too crazy, so that as soon as you looked at this, you're like, yo, that's well out my price bracket, which is why you can optimize this a little bit more if you do decide to go, okay, well, I'm going to add in an SP Little Knight because I was lucky enough to pull it from a tin, or I already owned one, or anything like that. So that's how you can kind of upgrade the extra deck. I feel the main deck is pretty standard. I don't think there's anything there that is going to be a huge amount, unless you decide to make this an OTK build. And if you do decide to make it an OTK build, you bring out, you could possibly bring out Imperms and Ashes. You'd cut down some of the Tri-Brigade cards that are designed for the grind game, and you'd cut down some of the Fire King cards, like the Sanctuary, like the second Avatar Advata, and you'd cut them down so you then open up the door to stuff like Thrusts, into Talents, into Raigekis, Lightning Storms, Dusters, you name it. You're basically then switching out your hand traps of board break, and you go, right, okay, cool. You do your combo for 20 minutes, half an hour, and I'm going to break your board and OTK you within 5, and then we're going to go into game 2, and I'll pretty much do the exact same thing. And that's the best thing about certain decks like this, is that they have that ability that they can be quite unpredictable. So you do get some OTK decks that are like, okay, cool, well, I know if I make you go first, you really will struggle. But if I make you go second, I'm kind of playing into the game plan of the deck you've designed. Whereas with a deck like this, it's kind of one of them ones that it has the ability to shift between going first and second. So that if you design it to go second and everyone's like, oh, I'm worried about your board breakers, I'm going to make you go first, you can go, okay, cool. I'll just go down the standard route of a Revolt play into a Shurag play, and then I'll start protecting from the board breakers and everything else that I expect you have put in order to combat the deck. Anyway, that is it for the entire profile. Any questions at all, by all means, comments down below. I will be more than happy to answer them. For now, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.